Welcome to TFP, the Theatrefolk podcast, the place to be for drama teachers, drama students, and theater educators everywhere. I'm Lindsay Price, resident playwright for Theatrefolk. Hello. I hope you're well. Thanks for listening. You have reached episode 127A. As you can tell by the number of this podcast, we're doing things a little different. This is not our regular podcast week. The episode number isn't normal. 127A. I know, not terribly out of the box, different. It's very Canadian A, but we'll do what we can do. Okay, so what is happening? So here in 127A, I want to make sure that you, yes you, that you are in the loop and in the know about our free video series coming out next week, Drama Teacher Tune-Up. Are you feeling a little creaky this time of year? A little cranky? You've been focused on your kids all year long, trying to bring them to the finish line. Now it's time to do something for yourself. Or maybe you are just about to step into the drama classroom, maybe for the first time. Maybe it's the first time teaching drama. So get out the oil can, give yourself some professional development that's specific to your needs and your classroom. I talk to a lot of teachers, and something that comes up on a frequent basis is the lack of relevant professional development for drama teachers. Sometimes you guys end up with the English teachers, right? Sometimes you got to do a seminar on testing, which isn't professional development at all. We all need to keep learning, and the end of school should never mean the end of learning. You know, again, some of you are given that curveball in the middle of careers. You used to teach art. Now you're teaching drama. Surprise! The two are basically the same thing, right? Art, drama, art. You can switch over easily. The kids will never know. You can put together a drama class syllabus, can't you? Sometimes I'll talk to a teacher and they say that I took the drama job. I took the job teaching drama because that was the job that was available. And when something like that happens, where do you start? So our Drama Teacher Tune-Up is going to focus on 4 areas: teaching Mask, teaching Shakespeare, close reading, and classroom management. And with each area, we have a special guest who's going to share their expertise. Alison Williams has been teaching Mask for 20 years. One of the tips she's going to talk about is side coaching during a Mask class. Matt Webster is the chair of a fine arts department at a high school in North Carolina, but he used to teach students how to become teachers and knows all the ins and outs of managing a drama classroom. The drama class is not like any other class and shouldn't be treated as such. Todd Espeland is a visiting assistant professor of theater at Kalamazoo College, and he wants you to teach Shakespeare without frustration. And even though I'm a playwright by trade, I've been using close reading in workshops for years. I've got a pre-study exercise for your visual learners to get into this text analysis technique. So if you're just starting out, if you're brain fried, if you're wishing you knew a little more or a lot more, we want to help. With each topic, there's going to be a handout or a tip sheet or an exercise you can use in the classroom. And further to that, the whole series comes with a workbook, the perfect place to take notes, make reflections, connect to what you're learning. And did I mention all of this was free? Free. Let me echo that for you. Free. So, how do you sign up for this wonder of wonders, may you ask? Wonder of wonders. Everybody sing. Okay, no, don't do that. You go to dramateachertuneup.com. Dramateachertuneup, all one word, dramateachertuneup.com. And there you will find everything you need to know. When you sign up, you'll also get access to that workbook. I'm also going to put it in the show notes. So that's the regular place, theatrefolk.com/episode 127A. But if you go to dramateachertuneup.com, you're going to get everything you need. And since you are so awesome for sitting here listening to our extra podcast, 127A, I want to give you a bonus. This is a bonus podcast. You should get a bonus. So I've got an additional tune-up topic just for you, just for podcast listeners. This is not in the video series. And it's about playwriting. That's me. Ta-da! So playwriting in the classroom is something that a lot of teachers well, they aren't so keen to take on, right? And maybe that's because they're insecure in their own writing skills. I could never write a play, so why would I ever teach playwriting? So I firmly believe that all students can write a play regardless of natural talent or ability. And I believe that you can teach playwriting. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. And why do I believe that? How do you do that? Here are my best tips for including playwriting in your drama classroom. Playwriting in the classroom is something that it's a lot of teachers, they're not so keen to take on. And that's because they're insecure with their own writing skills. I could never write a play. How could I even teach playwriting? I firmly believe that all students can write a play, regardless of natural talent or ability. And I also believe that you can teach playwriting. Yes, you. Yes, I'm talking right to you. And why do I believe that? How do you do that? Here are my best tips for including playwriting in your drama curriculum. Tip number 1, remember it's all about the skills. The purpose of drama in high school, middle school too, it's not to train students for a theater career or to become the next Arthur Miller or David Mamet. Not really. The drama classroom develops real-world skills. Communication, creative thinking, team building, self-expression, self-confidence. These are all real-world skills. They're necessary skills. I think they're even identified as those all-important 21st century skills. It's so funny when they come out with these 21st century skills. These are things that drama teachers have been doing for years. They're already 21st century. They're way ahead of the curve. And when you get right down to it, writing a play is a direct application of all these skills. What is the writer trying to say? How are they saying it? What are they expressing? How are they communicating their story to an audience? How do they work together with a cast to present the play? And nothing builds confidence in a student more than a finished play. It's just, I find it amazing working with student writers and seeing that pride and seeing that confidence come to life. So when you work with students on a play, forget talent. Don't focus on talent. Don't focus on the Broadway neon lights. Don't try to figure out which student has written something good or which student has written something bad. It's skills. Focus on the skills. How do we do that? Communication. As your students write, ask them this question. What are you trying to say here? What do you want the audience to get from your play? What's the theme? What does your main character want? These are all questions that every student should be able to answer about their work. And the answers to these questions have nothing to do with being talented or creative. It's all about communication. Creative thinking. When you break it down, creative thinking is the act of finding different approaches to solving problems. That's it. It's not about magic unicorns. It's not about I can paint a rainbow. It's a different approach to a problem. And if the word creative is what is giving your students the heebie-jeebies, don't use it. So here's how you get students to think creatively without them even realizing it. Give your students limitations. When you're teaching playwriting, for example, keep it simple when you're starting out. Right? One scene, 2 characters, 1 location. That's it. That's all. That's what they have to work with. Limitations like that spur creativity naturally. They force students to sort of think outside the box without ever saying the words. You need to think outside the box. It's the worst phrase ever. Self-confidence. Students need to be encouraged to write because they think they can't do it. And further to that, many have been told they can't do it. They've been told they're not creative. They've been told that they can't write well. I know a teacher put a play in a drawer where it sat for 25 years. Why? Because a high school teacher criticized it. And what about you? What about your self-confidence? If you feel the same, if you worry about your self-confidence as a writer, then I would suggest you do the exercises with your students. That's what a good friend of mine, a good teacher friend of mine, that's what he did. He decided if he was going to get his students to write, he was going to do it along with them. He was going to write a 1-act right along with his students to show them he was in the same boat as them. And it helped the students immensely to see that he was going through the same challenge as they were. It was the ultimate modeling moment. Okay, so that's tip number 1. It's all about the skills. Tip number 2 is practice. I often compare writing to sports. And what I mean by that is practice has to be a part of the process. An athlete doesn't wake up ready to perform at an Olympic level just automatically. They have to have a habit of practice. Warm-ups, focusing on specific elements of their sport. Let's say they're runners and they have to work on the last 100 meters of their run. And cross-training too, cross-training so that they don't get injured. And writing works best when you include a habit of practice. Warm-ups, focusing on specific elements, and cross-training. It can't be just about the performance. Working on that class play, for example. Spend time writing monologues or just writing character profiles to dive deep into character development. Start every class with a 5-minute warm-up. My favorite warm-up exercise is automatic writing. You give students a topic and a time limit, and their job is just to write. It's an act over content exercise. You just get the writing done. Another one I love is called first lines. Very obvious. Students walk into your room, they see the first line written on the board. That's the first line for a 1-page, 2-character, 1-location scene. And in fact, I'm going to include a handout with a whole page filled with first lines that you can use at the end of this workshop. Cross-training. Okay, what kind of cross-training can you do with writing? Well, use improv as part of the writing process. Have students improv scenes using characters from the play that they're working on. But put the characters in situations that are outside the world of the play. Like all the characters in the play are at the beach. So how do they handle the beach? Loves the water. Who's completely covered so they don't get sunburned? Who's loving it? Who's complaining? You'll really see how well the students know their characters. And maybe in an exercise like this, they'll learn something that they want to put in their play. So that's tip number 2. Practice, 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 practice. And it's not even about practice makes perfect. It's about having that habit of practice and just having an exercise that students can do that is successful for them and that keeps them writing. Instead of the big project, they've got a warm-up. Instead of, getting stuck in their play, they're doing a little bit of cross-training. It keeps the process, I think, fun. Okay, tip number 3. Take small steps. When students falter with their writing, more often than not, it's because they've jumped into the deep end of the pool. I'm going to write an epic piece, and it's going to have 17 locations, and it's going to have a cast of thousands. It's going to be epic. And when they try to do that and they get stuck, or they feel overwhelmed, it's overwhelming to write a big project. I get overwhelmed all the time with my writing. Everybody does. I don't think it matters if you've been writing for a week or if you've been writing for 20 years. You get overwhelmed. But what happens with students is that happens and they automatically assume it's because they can't write. And that's not true. What you need to do when you're working on something big is start small. All you need to do is you need to walk into the water gradually, one step at a time. For example, before they dive into that class project, they dive into that play, have students work on monologues, half-page monologues. Become an expert in writing a monologue. Because I like to think monologues are a great place to start. The monologue is a mini play, right? It has a beginning, a middle, and end. It has a character, and something has to happen to that character to make the monologue interesting. It's either an emotional journey, or it's a reveal, or it's sharing a secret. So get working on those. And after students work on monologues, move on to scenes. Small. Right? Set those limitations. 2 characters, 1 location. This is the base. It's the fundamental building block of playwriting. And if they don't know how to write a conversation between 2 characters in one place, how could they manage writing for a cast of thousands in 17 locations? Master the small steps. And you can even use this approach with how much time you devote to writing in a class. Start with small chunks. 5 minutes on a warm-up, 15 minutes on idea brainstorming, and then move on to a different subject matter. And I like this approach much better, particularly when you're getting into it, instead of the massive writing sessions. Those are tiring, and students will get frustrated. So walk into the water gradually. Start on the first day of the semester. Start writing right away. Get students writing in their journals. Have them reflect on their day so far. What's really bugging them? That's a good prompt for students. And once they've been doing that for a bit, then move from journal to writing warm-up. Maybe a month before you start your writing unit, introduce a 5-minute warm-up every day. Then move from writing warm-ups to monologues. Move from that to scenes. Move from scenes to character profiles. And all of a sudden, that leap to writing a play it's not so big. It's not so daunting. And you don't get students saying, what do you mean we have to write a play? I can't write. And if they do, well, you can point out to them that they've been writing all along. Okay, so that's it. That's my 3 tips for you for playwriting. So we started with directing youth and the 5 keys. Learning lines is no big deal. There are small parts. Focus on your character, not yourself. Come through. Don't act. Then the tips for playwriting in your classroom. It's all about the skills. Practice, 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 and take small steps. Next, we're going to bring in Matt Webster, who's going to share tips for classroom management. So that is a couple of extra tune-up tips for adding playwriting into your classroom. It's all about the skills, practice, 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 and take small steps. So that's just one tip, but you want more. So please head on over to dramateachertuneup.com, dramateachertuneup.com, and there you will find the Drama Teacher Tune-Up link that you can sign up and get your free professional development video series. I can't wait to see you there. Finally, where can you find this podcast? We post new episodes every second Tuesday at theatrefolk.com and on our Facebook page and Twitter. You can find us on youtube.com/theatrefolk, and you can find us on the Stitcher app. You can subscribe to TFP on iTunes. All you got to do is search on the word Theatrefolk, and that's where we're going to end. Take care, my friends. Take care. And don't forget, dramateachertuneup.com.